Welcome to the Podium Pod, the Pick and Rolls National Basketball Podcast, as we continue through the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. I'm Adam Webster, and I'm joined this morning, early morning, 3 a.m. early morning, by the Pick and Rolls, Hayley Wilds. Hayley, we just stayed up super late or got up super early, depending on which way you did it, to watch the Opals face Team USA. Probably an unsurprising result in the fact that the Opals lost 85-64. But what are your immediate reactions heading into that loss?
Yeah, it was like you said, it's a different beast going up against the United States. And when you look at their starting lineup, it's almost overwhelming the amount of length they have, and that really played a role in that first quarter and obviously the second and third quarters when they took over with A'ja Wilson and Breanna Stewart. They're the two best players in the world, you could argue, pretty easily. And when you've got those two on the court together, it's near impossible to score how you want to score. So just trying to find points against an American team that has those two, and then you go on from there, and there's just depth across the whole lineup. And the depth isn't just normal depth. It's all-stars, it's legends. So it was always going to be difficult, and it sort of went how many would expect it to go.
No, you're right. I mean, A'ja Wilson and Breanna Stewart got going really early. And the Australians did what, unfortunately, have done all tournament. Unfortunately, what both teams have done all tournament. They turned the ball over early and often. A lot of them were live ball turnovers, resulting in easy baskets for the US. But it spoke more to how Team USA were just willing to run on Australia at every possible opportunity. So turnovers were that much more costly against this team.
Yeah, and it's those turnovers that obviously have been the killer for both the Boomers and the Opals. But it's almost like these turnovers, they don't look like they're forced turnovers, but when you've got like I mentioned earlier, the length of the USA team, when like Breanna Stewart, she's 6'4", but she's got a 7'1" wingspan, which is just unheard of. So to try and get even a normal entry pass against those players is so much more difficult than it looks. But yeah, the turnovers definitely killed the Opals, and then from there, they did well in that first quarter to get back into things and sort of only be down a couple of baskets. But then, yeah, obviously USA took over in the second and third, and from there it was game over.
Well, it was close there at quarter time. 20-16 was the score. Australia were within 2 points, and then a late basket to Team USA in that first quarter. But despite the 6 or 7 turnovers in the first term, they were in the game. And then the USA came out after quarter time and just punched them in the mouth. It was overwhelming, the talent, the ball movement, the shot making. And from there, Australia were on the back foot. They were on the back foot in the first quarter and were able to come back. But then they copped a really significant blow in that second quarter and just were never able to recover from there.
Yeah, and I think in that first quarter, I think Tess Madgen came in and hit a couple of buckets, and that sort of evened up the score a bit. And you can do that for a quarter, but then obviously the USA, they just keep answering, and Australia weren't able to answer that challenge every time, which isn't unexpected, as we've mentioned. And obviously a 21-point loss does look not great, but against a team like the USA, it's not too bad. You look at how much they've won by in games at the past Olympics, this Olympics. It's what they do every game. So it's not as bad as it looks, but also there's some positives to take away when you see Izzy Borlase in that last quarter take over, and she just hit basket after basket. It's sort of a glimpse into the future, and then also maybe something Sandy can look at in this bronze medal game if Steph Talbot is injured, and hopefully she can play. But if she can't, you've got Izzy Borlase there who's capable of doing great things.
I was going to ask about that next. I mean, Steph Talbot did not return after potentially suffering injury. She was carrying an injury into this tournament. So she went off. Sammy Whitcomb copped a really hard shoulder from Brittany Griner in the second half as well. So, the most reliable players for this Opals team got banged up on the perimeter throughout this contest, which means that there's going to be a lot more resting on the shoulders of an Izzy Borlase heading into this bronze medal match.
Yeah, that hit on Whitcomb, that was a massive hit, and hopefully she's okay and able to. Obviously, she went off after that, and the game was well out of hand. So I think Sandy made the right call to leave her off. But hopefully she can play, because if you're missing those two players, it's a massive loss for the Opals because both of them have been great. And Whitcomb's just started all tournament. She's nearly been our best player along with Smith. So hopefully she's right to go. But yeah, it sort of looks at if you're missing two players like that, it's going to be hard for the Opals. But yeah, Whitcomb's such a feisty player, and I'm sure she'll do everything she can to get out there. And we just hope Talbot's re-aggravation of that injury isn't too bad, and it was maybe just a case of, look, we're out of this. Maybe we do just sit it and see if you get an extra 2 days rest before that bronze medal game.
Well, I want to talk about that fourth quarter, but before I do, I want to talk about Team Feet because the Podium Pod is brought to you by Team Feet. Team Feet offers premium athletic socks for modern teams, however they compete, with sweat wicking cotton, arch support, ventilation panels, and compression stitching. Team Feet socks are built to outperform whether your team is tiny or thousands strong. Team Feet unites and excites your players and supporters by their combination of quality and performance. Join basketball teams around Australia and the world by choosing Team Feet for designs and worldwide delivery. Head to teamfeet.com. Hayley, we haven't seen Isabelle Borlase so far in this tournament really take the game by the scruff of the neck, as we know that she can. And in that fourth quarter, wow, she exploded for 11 points and almost single-handedly got Australia over the line in that fourth quarter. They won. That was the only quarter they won in this contest, 24-19. It seemed like every time she touched the ball, something positive happened. She was making good passes. She was driving. She was being able to finish. She was stepping back for jumpers. I mean, it was the full Izzy Borlase experience in the last quarter.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, that is the Izzy Borlase experience, and we've seen that in the WNBL now for a couple of years, and it's great to see her get that confidence at this level because she sort of had a few turnovers early in games, early in this tournament, and you can sort of see that sort of hurting her confidence. But to come out like that in the fourth quarter, yes, it was against the USA bench, but that bench is still the best bench in the world and would beat most teams in this tournament. So for her to produce that against players like Ionescu and Jewel Lloyd was out there, like Greiner was out there, I think, at a stage. So she's playing against great players and scoring those points. So it doesn't matter when you were scoring those points, to get out there in those minutes and play like that was really impressive by Borlase.
The other one I want to talk about is Christy Wallace because she played that whole fourth quarter as well and really steadied the team. We hadn't seen a lot of Christy Wallace in this tournament. We'd seen her in patches, but it seemed like she was out of the rotation for big portions of this tournament. But Sandy went to her in the last term, and she was able to fight through what was some pretty tough defense at times, make some things happen, make some shots, and really steady the team.
Yeah, she had a few nice assists there. And obviously her shot wasn't falling, but she's aggressive and she's always going to be aggressive on both ends of the court, offense and defense. And she brings it on the defensive end like few others. So it's good to see her get some minutes and hopefully she's able to carry that over into the next game if Talbot can't play because like you've mentioned, Wallace and Borlase might have bigger roles to play if Talbot's not out there.
Yeah, a couple of free throws there and a made basket. She was 1 for 8 from the field, but she wasn't alone there. I mean, Ezzy Magbagor was 1 for 6 from the field in this contest and really struggled at times and probably more of a conversation more widely about the whole tournament for Ezzy because I think she kind of set herself to be one of the very, top leaders of this team heading into this competition. It hasn't turned out that way for her. And sometimes it's just not your tournament. And for Ezzy, it really just kind of hasn't been her tournament over the last couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, it has sort of been a disappointing tournament for Ezzy. Obviously, she's our best player. Like, she's a superstar in the WNBA. She's a defensive anchor for any team she's on. And whilst the Opals have won and she's played, the defense has been there. She just hasn't sort of produced on the offensive end, which always that aggressiveness is a question mark around her. But she's had a couple of games where she's looked aggressive and she has been taking it to the bucket. But against the USA, that length of Asia Wilson is just, it's so hard to score against, and you can't sort of fault her for missing those shots against Wilson. At least she was attempting them in there. But yeah, a bit more aggressiveness from Ezzy would have gone a long way throughout this tournament. But there's a bronze medal game, and hopefully she can bring it out there. And if you get bronze in an Olympics, it's a great tournament.
Absolutely. We were talking about that before, how, there's always the US sort of looming. So to be able to finish on a win and get a bronze medal is a really good result, I think, for this program, particularly after the loss to Nigeria first up. Last point I want to touch on this morning is Jade Melbourne I feel like she has hit the floor more than any other player in this whole tournament. And every single time I look at it and think, is there a foul there? Should there be a foul called? I mean, look, it's a part of her game that she plays so hard and attacks the rim so aggressively. But I mean, has anyone hit the court more than Jade Melbourne over the last 2 weeks?
It was funny. I was thinking to myself watching this game, she's going to need a month off after this. But then you realize the WNBA is back in a week. So she doesn't have any time for a break, it's pretty incredible to have to go back into the WNBA after a tournament like this so quickly. So that's for many of the players out there. But yeah, Melbourne, she's going to give 100%, and her drives to the bucket in the WNBA are the same, and in the WNBA, and she's just going to go every opportunity she gets. If she sees an open lane, she's going, and she's not making every shot, but she's playing the right way every time. So you can't fault her effort, and I love the way she goes about it.
I think we all do. Hayley Wilds, thanks so much for joining me tonight on the Podium Pod. We will hopefully see you after the bronze medal match. You can find the Podium Pod, obviously, on YouTube Live, as well as through our social channels and podcast channels, Apple Podcasts, Spotify as well as our other podcasts, Unwrap, the Pick and Roll podcast, releasing every Friday on those podcast channels. And you can head to pickandroll.com.au to read all of Hayley's great work and subscribe to hear from the whole team. So, Hayley, have a great morning. Hopefully you can get some sleep now. But the Opals at least have one more chance to get themselves a medal in Paris.
Rose gold.
Rose gold is what we're going for. Have a great night, everyone. Thanks for being with us. See you again next time.